Hello and welcome back. It's been a while at the time of this recording. It's already a good chunk into January. Season 24 is over and done with. But I wouldn't say it's outdated. It's definitely something I want to cover because I think it's a bit of double dipping because when the ban list was announced, it wasn't implemented until 10 days into season 25. So for a good portion of season 25, I was laddering with this deck and made it to Master 5. And then I'll have a separate deck profile of a list that I went through Master with that abides by the ban list. Not that Mathmech got hit, but it accounts for the meta shifts. So for this particular meta, there was Branded, there was Dragon Link. Dragon Link was unceremoniously cast into the pits of Tartarus after they got banned. Their Collapse Serpent got banned. No, not Collapse. Wyvern Burster got banned. And so after the ban list, you didn't really see that much Dragon Link. Just kind of, it is what it is. So yeah, Branded was peak. So was Labyrinth. We'll talk about those matchups later. I have the data. We can just let's just jump into the deck list. So for starters, I have 1 Dotscaper, 3 Maxi, 3 Ash Blossom, 1 Ghost Spell and Haunted Mansion, 1 Firewall Guardian, 1 Sigma, 1 Addition, 1 Subtraction, 1 Multiplication, 1 Diameter, 3 Circular, 3 Firewall Defensor, 3 Parallel Exceed, 3 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Archfiend Eccentric, 2 Signet Mining, 1 Mathmech Equation, 3 Small World, 2 Called by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, 3 Infinite Impermanence, and 1 Superfactorial. Now for the extra deck, we have 1 Cybers to Save Worm, 1 Laplacian, 1 Alimbertian, 1 Mirologic Aggregator, 1 Almirage, 1 Linger Repo, 1 Link Decoder, 1 Update Jammer, 1 Splash Mage, 1 G-Golem Crystal Heart, 1 Transcode Talker, 1 Decode Talker Heat Soul, 1 Axis Code Talker, 1 Firewall Dragon Fluid Terahertz, and Firewall Dragon Singularity. Okay, so I adopted a different kind of build. I think in the previous season I did not play 40 cards. I figured with that diameter limit, it just I wanted to play pure Mathmech with no additional engine. And that was originally 3 diameter, 2 addition, 2 subtraction. I played a lot more Mathmech names than the typical build. I didn't even play Defensor or Spirits. Part of it was to combat Maxi because there's a 2-card combo when you open Circular and they chain Maxi. You can just normal summon any Mathmech name and you just search Superfactorial, and then it's not foolproof because they get 2 draws off the Maxi, but it gives you something to do because you have hand trap. You have what's called Superfactorial. It's not super easy for all decks to play through it. I mean, if it's Dragon Link, there's not much you can do. So that was the goal. Another thing that so here I didn't really, I don't want to say I didn't put too much thought into it, but I wanted to play a bunch of starters going into the into the new season. So I just played 3 Circular, 3 Defensor, 3 Parallel Exceed, and then all the Minings and Small Worlds. So I just wanted to okay, I don't really want to brick. I'm gonna play it safe, and I keep it at 40. It shouldn't be too scary to go above 40, but just for the purposes of this climb, was let's just, I don't know, take a vanilla list. Not that this is quite vanilla, but I just wanted something kind of basic. I even went back to an old friend, Archfiend Eccentric, which is a very, very common Small World bridge. It pretty much is it's like the second best bridge. I think the first best bridge for Small World with respect to, searching Circular or using any combination of hand traps, it's Lancia. But Eccentric, I didn't actually use its effect to pop a card that often, but it did kind of come up, there's some decks like Vanquish Soul where they'll have they'll set their dumb trap Snow Devil, which is extremely hard to interact with. You can force it out, and then it doesn't out it, but you make it so you flush it out and they have to activate it early. So it is kind of nice for those applications, but for the most part it was just a Small World bridge, and it's very unique because it has 1,000 defense. It's light, it's not level 4, and There's probably other positives to it, but it came up. Oh yeah, level 3 mattered a lot because oftentimes when I was going second to Labyrinth or something like that, I would just first action Small World, banish one of these people, like what's, I don't know. It could literally be like a subtraction because it has 1,000 defense. You can bridge Eccentric and then add Ash, and it's now Small World's a going second card versus those Big Welcome. And if they don't, if they anticipate you searching Ash, well, they're gonna activate their Big Welcome early, and then they're gonna pop a card, and it's like, okay, nice. You kind of just played your hand, if that makes sense. Labyrinth is a lot easier to beat if they just shotgun everything. If they hold their stuff until you commit, monsters onto the board, then they're removing your bodies. Especially like something like Defensor. You'll normal summon Defensor. They pop it. I'm not saying your turn's over, but it's just you're just losing resources that way. You're bleeding in card advantage. That's a poor trade. I'd rather lose a random card in my hand than my normal summon being consumed, or even something as simple as like activate Circular and then send Sigma, and then I'll activate Sigma and then it'll just remove my Circular, and then my Sigma just kind of sits there looking stupid. So that was it was cute. I think I really liked treating Small World as a going second card. It's not that great because it's versus it's kind of a specific matchup, but it helps. Eccentric kind of like removes a lot of thought when it comes to Small World. It's a very good bridge. I still don't really believe in its ability to pop cards because one other common matchup was Stun, and they play runic cards. Hugin destroys Eccentric. It would be nice to pop. There can be only one when they flip it, but if they have a runic quick play spell, they can always just chain it, and then Eccentric will just be it'll be nullified by Hugin's effect on resolution of the chain. So I don't really believe in it against Stun, but as a good Small World bridge, can't complain. So in a way, so I mentioned I wanted to play a bunch of starters. So if you look at it, that's 3 Circular, 3 Defensor. Exceed you can think of as a starter. It's kind of like Small World, where Small World requires another monster on the field or in your hand to bridge into Circular. Similarly, it requires your normal summon, but it's still like another monster. Think of it as like a discard cost, if it makes sense, if that makes more sense to you. Mining requires a discard cost. It's a little bit less picky about it. Small World is pickier, but you minus less into it. This is also a discard cost, but you use your normal summon. Sometimes even you don't use your normal summon. Sometimes you might even do something like special summon Sigma. So in a way, Exceed is a discard cost, but that doesn't do it justice. It's still an extender. When you're going one of the it's nice. But anyway, it's a starter. So this is 9 starters plus the 5 spell searchers. 5, 9, 14. So in 14 starters, you have about 90% chance of seeing at least one of them. It's slightly lower because of the ability to see Guardian, and I think that drops the percentage about 1.5% or something like that. So even so, 88%, 89%, not bad. And there were times when I played this deck and I bricked. I didn't see any of these start, and just because there's such a low chance of that happening doesn't mean it's impossible to happen. I think I don't really feel like I need to explain Dotscaper. It's also a Small World bridge, and in a pinch you can just normal summon and end on Terra. I still never used it for the Circular solo combo into Terahertz Heatzel. I think I don't know. It just I always prioritized Terahertz by itself. What I would do though is if I did have Circular, when you get to the point where you get Transcode, Revised Splash Mage, and Link Decoders on the field, and then you had another extra body, I would use Splash Mage plus the extra body or Link Decoder, doesn't matter, to make Heatzel to get a draw 1, and then afterwards I would use all 3 of them into Terahertz, and then Terahertz would send to Save Worm at end phase, and on next turn you can threaten either, sometimes Sun will play board breakers, sometimes Cashier will play board breakers. You can send Defensor in response to that board breaker, like Regeki, or you can send Aggregator. A lot of roles being compressed in that 1 terahertz. And of course, you set up Super Factorial if needed, if it's not already set up. So Dotscaper, I think it was mostly a small world ridge, but it wasn't too shabby. There were some like matchups where like the mirror, they'll Laplacian my hand and they send the Dotscaper and they just scoop immediately because, I don't know. I'd be tilted too if I hit a Dotscaper. That's just a minor thing. It's a cute synergy, but don't let it be like the reason why you play this card. It's just a funny tangent. I think it's a good card though. It's like not bad to draw. And like, in a lot of cases it can be a normal summon, but it's not that. I don't really consider it a conflict or anything like that, because you just summon a superior normal summon. Like if you open a hand with like Dotscaper and Defensor, this guy's just superior to normal summon, and it's okay if he chills in hand. I mean, as long as this doesn't get interrupted, it's kind of the same outcome. Yeah, Dotscaper, I have some plans for him in the future. That'll be undisclosed. It'll be secret. The goo. Anyway, the point is, Dotscaper. I said I didn't really need to explain Dotscaper, but I just wanted to point out I didn't really use it to use terahertz to send it. Sorry, I didn't use terahertz to send Dotscaper to revive itself, and then make Heat Soul. So I ended on terahertz plus Heat Soul. I did not do that. I just thought it was better. Terahertz was better serves sending both the Save Worm and Aggregator. And it comes up a lot, especially with like Dragon Link. They have a lot of extenders. Sending Aggregator on the boot sector launch just shuts. They'll spin their wheels forever. But then once you realize they've taken their normal summon, and the only other way to field another body, even after doing the baby dragons, you just send Aggregator to their boot sector launch and they just explode. But I mean, that requires a lot of concentration and paying attention to what's going on in the Dragon Link matchup, which is easier said than done. I actually got Master 1 with Dragon Link on another account, so I kind of have an idea, a concept, and I watch content creators that play Dragon Link, so by osmosis and just me putting in the reps, I think I had an okay. I didn't really like. I was tapped in when my opponent was playing Dragon Link. Yeah, I don't think I should need to explain Maxi or Ash. The one bell is kind of silly. If you think about it, if my most matchups are Labyrinth, Branded, and Dragon Link, you'd probably play 3. I was kind of, let's play 3 Nibiru. But, you could just, during this format, I think it was just as valid to play the 3 bells and 1 Nibiru. I just like Nibiru way too much. Card's kind of clutch, and there's still like these annoying combo decks that just like Punk. Yeah, Chaos Ruler decks, like Sprite Synchro and stuff like that, where, you'll max see them and then they just don't care. They'll just play into it, and you kind of like the Nibiru is just there to ensure, there's a 3 of them. You can always draw into the 1, but I feel like playing all 3, you want to increase your chances of seeing that. But yeah, I think there's a case for playing 2 Bell. The only problem with Bell is there's not really a bridge for it. Oh, okay, that's not true because we have Eccentric. So if you play Eccentric and Bell, you don't really have to worry about drawing Bell. It'll get you to Circular. Guardian is an engine requirement. Not bad to draw. The situations where I've drawn Defensor and Guardian, they come up, but it literally has to be Guardian plus no extender plus no Circular. Like nothing. If it's literally just Guardian on its own, which isn't, I mean, we could bring up the math, but it's really not realistic to me that this card, drawing these 2 suck. This is kind of similar to like drawing Gamma and Driver suck, but I think it's playable. You just look to the rest of your hand and see if it can, perform. So here's Sigma. I feel like, yeah. I just played less Mathmech names this season just to play more engines like a Defensor. Circular, I feel like self-explanatory. I think I talked about Exceed a bit. Nibiru, I think, was pretty strong. I think it just performs pretty well if you know how to use it. Sometimes I think that the matchups where it's like completely floodgated, like they're pretty rare. Like I will say Labyrinth doesn't really care too much about Nibiru. Sprite Synchro doesn't necessarily gigantic lock immediately unless they're bricked. So it can be good here, Nibiru, in that matchup. I would still think Nibiru on its own doesn't always beat it. Like sometimes your opponent has to not respect Nibiru for it to be really good, which I think is fair to say. Like most people don't like get cautious about Nibiru unless Maxi's dropped. I played against a Vanquish Soul who was just like going ham and like he just didn't give a fuck about Nibiru, but he just I just toggled off, and then once I once I waited for the right moment, he got gooed by Nibiru. Like he couldn't stick a rock on the field. It was painful for this man. So it is in a way kind of like a pub stomper card where you're stealing wins off less experienced players. But it's kind of one of the risks you take, and it's like kind of like a call you make, especially on ladder. I feel like you don't really get punished if you go either way. With one Nibiru or two Bell. It's ladder. If you lost because of one thing, you just play the next time. You just play next game and maybe it'll come up again. Yeah, I mean, Imperm, I'm very partial to this card. It beats Rock. It beats draw phase, branded opening for a Luber. Like this card does not, you can top deck it and then negate a card like Barone or Fenrir, Appaloosa. Like this card does not play around, I think it's like pretty good card. It doesn't do enough on its own, but in combination with other stuff, it can be really annoying. For the extra deck, we're playing All Mirage for Exceed. Yeah, it's actually come up a lot, a couple times. We're playing Update Jammer is pretty interesting because I'm playing Multiplication. I really did not Update Jammer plus access code OTK. It was very common for me to just beeline for the terahertz for Multiplication. For better or for worse, you could say like the Multiplication is not necessary because you could just Update Jammer access code. But then, conversely, if you ever need to cut Update Jammer, you can make up for that by playing Multiplication, right? Like in the main deck. You pick your poison, in my opinion. Like I don't think it's okay. Multiplication is not that great to draw. At the very least, he's a Mathmech name, but and he can like play around Imperm on access code, so you can just attack for game, so you keep your attack value. So he's very useful for that. But if you play Multiplication, you need a reason to do it. So I think I could see a world where I cut Update Jammer. And if I need to make space for some other engine, and I got rid of Update Jammer, but I still play terahertz, perhaps I keep Multiplication. It's just like something to keep in mind. Keep it in your back pocket. Sometimes people use Multiplication and play Final Sigma, and then that's their use case for Multiplication, which makes sense. I don't play Final Sigma, but I can kind of advocate for it. Let's see. I think, I was playing Singularity. So I think last season I was like, I don't really summon Singularity that often. It's still good, but I think when you end on terahertz, it's just as good. I don't know what it was about this format. Sometimes I'll get bestialed, but I have enough bodies to make Singularity, and it was just too much for my opponent. The stun was very popular because it was like a post Duelist Cup season, and stun was not hit as hard as it is now. So Singularity just comes up versus those matchup because they don't play hand traps. Like, so you just combo uninterrupted. You're given the opportunity, and like Singularity just bounces back row that they set. They'll some I don't think they realize like you can like what I thought was kind of funny when I set up Singularity terahertz. I don't even think they can really break it because sometimes they'll try Moon Mirror Shield plus like Pachycephalo, and then terahertz will just active during when they declare attack. They'll just send terahertz will send Aggregator, target Moon Mirror Shield. They crash their Pachycephalo and they're out of there. They explode. So these two are really sticky. Sometimes they'll play Raigeki, and I'll be like, all right, change Dark Fluid chain. send Defensor, protects both of these guys. So I was really happy because like this is another thing. You had to save Worm. You had 2 bounces on their turn at their end phase, and then you hold the bounce on your turn in case they have a skill drain, a TC boo, or something like that. And like it's just so hard for Sun to come back. I've had moments where I would end on like a terahertz plus heat soul or something like that, and like they would still brute force their way past my board, even though I went first, and it just felt really unfair. Like they pull some bullshit like Jaugen to attempt to pop the board, and I didn't have like the option of Dark Fluid, Terahertz sending this guy. Like, because as soon as they normal summon Pachycephalo or Jaugen or something like that, your super factorial is dead. So that was the other thing. I had super factorial; they cannot play through it. So this card cleaned up Stun. You could say it's overkill, but I thought it was insurance. Like, I don't think I ever lost a Stun going first, and though there are some opportunities to lose. Like if they draw Amano Iwado, so be it. So I don't know. I was proud of Singularity. Dragon Link cannot play through bounces that well. Like believe it or not, you can prevent them from setting up Pisty, or they don't get that far after they've. Because like they do have limited extenders. They have Boot Sector Launch to summon a rocket from hand. They do have what's called the babies, but you can only special summon them once per turn. So after they've gone through the whole ladder, you can board wipe them in a way by bouncing 2, and then they have to regroup and recreate the loop. And they don't really have that many extenders besides Quick Launch. And Rocket Tracer is an extender if they pop another card, but that dark locks them, so they have even less options. So yeah, that's I think this was kind of quick rundown. I think we'll go into data. I think we'll both go into the season 24 stuff. It was a pretty easy climb, and then there's a bit of the season 25 stuff where we laddered into Diamond. That climb was a little bit rougher, which was interesting. Let's see. All right, so I'll see you there. Okay, so here's the fun part. So I'll kind of make this brief because you can always look at this in the description. I'll always link this. And plus, we're going to be covering like 2 sets, basically, season 24 and the beginning of season 25, which is where I used the same deck before the ban list and got all the way to Master 5. So, as you can see, got a pretty bad lose streak, but it's okay. We're getting win streaks and stuff. Kashtira promotion. Oh, the first match of Master 5 is Egyptian Gods. Glad we came out of that alive. Double going second to Labyrinth loss. You hate to see it. Pretty good win streak, and then we get to Master 3. Seems like pretty unscathed, and then we get hit with the immediate demotion. Three losses, and I'm pretty sure I just misplayed a couple times. It is the nature of the game. You'll misplay one game, and then you end up playing games where you go second and it's kind of unwinnable. It happens, yeah. So anyway, the demotion didn't really stop me though. It's ladder. You can always pick yourself up and go back and queue again, or take a break. If it's too tilting. Yeah. So we just keep going, and then we just hit this. We hit the biggest lick of our lives. So we go straight into Master 3, go to Master 2, and then yeah, we got it there. A bunch of going second streaks. We actually got a going first streak, but here, yeah, going second streak here. So yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. It was 87 games. That's pretty abnormal. If I'm being 86 games actually. Sorry about that. That's pretty abnormal. I'll be honest with you. I think this was our fastest climb yet, which is surprising. You'd think with Bestials and everywhere it would hinder me or something like that. But I don't know. I feel like I don't care too much about Bestials, but branded itself as a deck, it's kind of surprising that I'm doing my best versus them, and we'll just look at the matchups. Like, so going first, we went first quite a bit, so that's 47 times. And then here we went second 39 times, so that's a pretty significant difference. But our going first win rate was insane, 85%, despite having more games going first. Usually you'd expect it to even out to like 70% or something like that. A little bit arbitrary, but this is pretty absurd. I'm used to seeing like a 75% win rate going first. That's crazy. Going second, it's you hate to see it, 54% basically. It's basically 50-50. I think that's kind of true. It is kind of hard to go second. In previous metas, I've definitely had a better time going second. 70% win rate, can't complain. Yeah, this was a really fast climb despite the demote. Though I guess if you were to demote, you'd want to demote in immediate 3 games, so you don't spend too much time agonizing in the tier. With no surprise, this is branded being the top deck that I faced. Kashtira, that shouldn't be a surprise either. As much as people clown on Kashtira, it's a counter deck to Dragon Link and branded. Decks that play Bestials, it's still really strong. Same with Stun. Stun, it shouldn't be winning, right? But it does. It's people don't want to play fair games, and these guys do the best at playing unfair games. Vanquish Soul, it's kind of interesting. It does operate on a different axis compared to other decks. It can play Shifter like Kashtira can. It's pretty strong into Maxi. Like it's not like it's not immune to it like Fluanderies is, but it's pretty decent at setting up interaction. You can set up Fenrir, which punishes you for not using draw phase Maxi. Then you can almost win Rosin, and then even then, if you use Maxi in anticipation of Rock, they can just pass on the Rosin, and then they have Rosin plus Fenrir. So it's even they could just risk the draw and give you just a draw 1 with Rosin. It's pretty good pick on Maxi. Don't say it doesn't have counterplay. Dragon Link, it's not as much as these guys. It's only 5 games, but it's pretty significant. Same with Labyrinth, and then the rest, they can join the peanut gallery. Now let's check out the decks I beat the most. Looks like Stun, pretty good win rate. I have a feeling most of these are going first, but going second, there's a chance if they let you get the Linger Evo off, you just that's the most. They let you get away with too much. Let's see. Vanquish Soul, I'm surprised I beat every Vanquish Soul. Nearly ace. It was 7-1. I'm surprised about that. It's not a great matchup. If you go first, it's very good. But what matchup isn't good going first with Mathmech? You set up a almost unbreakable board. Well, not necessarily. You just set up a lot of interactions that people have trouble dealing with going second. Bisu Branded, that's 6 out of 10. That's nearly 50-50. I'm not surprised by that. It's a tough matchup. The branded fusion resolving is almost game. Mirror Jade is too strong. Kashtira is kind of a similar story. 6 out of 8, but I did play Imperm, I did play Nibiru. So that's, those are pretty effective in that matchup. It's pretty much all I dedicated. I didn't play Kaiju or anything. I kind of just said like, fuck it, if I run into Kashtira, that's it, I better open out. That's kind of the gameplay it encourages anyway. Dragon Link, we beat 4 out of 5 of them. Now, I've mentioned before, I'm pretty okay versus Dragon Link. I'm decent, have decent knowledge about it. So it does add mean a lot. Like I usually, I'm not surprised that it's maybe it could get to 50-50. I played more games. It's only 5 games, but yeah. Labyrinth, we smoked 3 out of 5 Labyrinth, pretty close to 50-50. Mathmech, okay, so Mathmech, so that's all the Mathmech matchups, and they didn't have that much of a representation, which I kind of falls in line in season 24. The decks that play Bestial it was enough to scare people from playing it. But I'll find when I go to season 25, there was still Mathmech players around, and they were pretty well represented in Diamond. So it's kind of interesting. Purely, was that every Purely? Okay, we lost to one Purely, but still, we had a pretty diverse matchup. Branded should be no surprise, and these guys should be kind of no surprise. So we didn't lose too much. yeah, like as 70% win rate suggests. Alrighty, so let's see. This is just this is junk. So now here's like the card types that I've been keeping track of. If you look over here, this is from season 23. So we can just like, take a look. You can see Max, Ash Blossom, Imperm Called. They're all at the top 4. You see 88% of the time people are playing it, but that's probably a contribution due to stun. Same with Ash Blossom. It got lowered. I mean, this is just my own count as of me keeping track of I always check my opponent's list. When after I face them and record it. So obviously it's not it's just a sample of that rank. Versus Konami actually has statistics that gets released and then they get put in a Master Duel meta article for everyone to see. That's more comprehensive, but it's still not really clear. At least this I can tell you for a fact that I literally just record these. You can see it on the season tab. There's nothing. I just make a count of all the text that I'm keeping track of on one column. So yeah. Anyway, Crossout, Barone, Zeus, TTT is at higher counts in this case. That's actually a pretty significant increase. If we can use this to compare apples to apples. Access code. I don't really see him down here. Where he at? Yeah, it's probably tied with Mathmech or something like that. I'm surprised. I should be. I don't think he's here. Probably lower. What's called Nibiru. That's an interesting system. So 35, 34, 40%. So they're pretty comparable here. And usually I expect people to play like a 1 of Nibiru. I am like not even like expecting, if they max me and I'm going second, I'm just gonna OTK. I'm gonna pretend Nibiru doesn't exist. It's just 1 copy. I mean, I should be cautious of it, but people really didn't dedicate Nibiru. They don't really go in. So Goddess. The Goddess is here. Isn't too represented. Arise Heart, where are you at? I mean, oh yeah, Kashira pretty, it's still pretty up there, 37% versus 38%. Where's Arise Heart? Okay, 18, 20%. I mean, yeah, it's pretty comparable, There's not too much variation here. I think I just started keeping track of Zeus. Oh no, they're here. Zeus is right here. Seems like there's less Zeus seeing play, or maybe just less decks that are representing Zeus. But I mean, for the most part, you can glean that like Max, Ash Blossom, Called, and Imperm are like the most played staples. There's Crossout, which is pretty close behind. Keep in mind that this is also a smaller sample size because I played less games. But anyway, so this is season 24. It's a little bit more brief, but I wanted also to dive into season 25, which doesn't have like the best record. Alrighty, I'll see you there. Okay, this is my season 25 tracker, and this is just filtered for Diamond. I think at the time of this recording, the climb has already been completed, so you can probably just get a sneak peek of like the season 25 profile where I go over this stuff. This will also be linked in the description. I'm not going to withhold it or anything, but just for to compare apples to apples, I'm just going to look at the Diamond, filter everything for Diamond. And just because I used the exact same list, like I didn't even do the like swap 2 bells for one Nibiru, for one of the Nibirus. I still play the 3 Nibiru, so it's the same exact list. If you noticed, I spent 80 duels in Diamond. It was very difficult. It surprisingly, if you look at season 24, it took me only 86 duels to get to Master 1. So just to get to Master 5, it took me 80 duels. So that's pretty big difference. And, you can see going second, my win rate is pretty much 50%. Kind of the nature of the format, I believe. There's probably some misplays involved, going second, but, there's a lot of decks that can going first pretty well. So the ban list has not been implemented at this point. I made it, I wanted to make it a point of just laddering in Diamond. And then the rest of my Master Climb will be after the ban list is implemented and Super Heavy is released. So that, when I talk about season 25, you can have like more, when I talk about my list, you'll have a more like idea of like, oh, how did I, combat that issue of, dealing with super heavy samurai. But for now, this is just the diamond climb. Yeah, the win rate is less than 60%. This is not great. I kept losing a lot, and it sucks to lose, but we persevered. So branded, at this point, people had knowledge of the ban list, and it looks like branded wasn't hit, so it looks like people were climbing with branded more. It's not like, I don't think like more people picked up branded because it was unhit, but this is kind of early into the first few days into the format. Sorry, the first few days of the month, where there, I believe the ban list wasn't implemented until the 10th. So, branded was unhit, Cashier was unhit, so there was no limited berth. This was surprising. You would think, previously I only faced like 3 Mathmech, but Mathmech's still a strong deck. People will cite Bestials as like, the reason for why it sees less play, but this is odd, right? The majority of the Mathmech players I faced were before the ban list, so you can't really say that. You can say that after the ban list, Bestials are reduced in most people's deck lists, so now it's easier to play Mathmech. But I don't think it's really. I mean, obviously there's gonna be people in Diamond, but I feel like it just didn't seem enough to scare people away from playing the deck at least. So we fought some Vanquish Soul, Labyrinth, and Vanadium. So this is interesting because this is a deck that I felt is a sleeper deck, and I faced like a couple in season 24, but now we're actually seeing like, okay, they're kind of, popping up at the beginning of the format. And yeah, and there's a peanut gallery like Fluander's, Exo Sister. I'm not surprised, Sister. There's not much to say about Exo Sister. It's kind of similar to Mathmech, but they can play Shifter. So yeah, interesting. This is interesting. What's called very conspicuous. Mathmech showing up in Diamond at the beginning of the format, right? You'd expect them. Their worst matchups are meta: Kashtira, Branded, Dragon Link. Yeah, and actually didn't run into any Dragon Link, so you can't really say that Dragon Link was the reason why he spent 80 duels here. So I just lost a lot, and that sucks. We still be win streaking though. So we beat most Mathmech players. It again goes to show. I think their experience is at play here. I'm not particularly teching against the Mathmech matchup. I don't play more bells and then I'm still playing that one copy of Bell. Nibiru sometimes comes in clutch. Yeah, I beat I beat 7 Bestial Branded, so that's a little bit more than half. It's a 50-50 matchup. There we go. We lost a whole ton versus Kashtira though. Yeah, I think there was a couple Kashtira where I went first, and then they kind of gassed through my interruptions. But they had hand traps to soften my board in those matchups, so that's not surprising. Shifter is a contribution. You go first and they'll shifter you, and there's not much you can do. So most of the time, I rely on opening Nibiru, but sometimes I'm pretty sure I remember one game where I fumbled the bag. I was under shifter. They summoned 5 times, but I just fumbled the bag. I messed up the what's called. I probably had another hand trap. I didn't sequence my hand trap in a way that forced him to summon 5 times. They summoned 4 times and they OTK'd me. But I'm pretty sure if I used like a bell on a burst or something like that, they would be forced to commit more to the board and then play into the Nibiru. It's a little bit hazy, but yeah, it feels bad, But Kashtira, I was kind of accepting that I would lose to it. Vanquish Soul beat my ass pretty badly. So that's 3 out of 5 of them. It's probably Shifter as well. Going second to them is just pretty difficult. If they have a Fenrir, if they have a Drock plus a Rosin, that's a lot of removal. And that's not really a joke. That's when things like terahertz sending multiplication comes in clutch. But I don't think it's an easy you also, if they set up the trap as well, that's a lot of layers of interaction and removal and wiping. Not even Dragon Link has like an easy time playing through all that. So yeah, don't if you face Vanquish Soul and you're losing that, don't feel too bad. It's not like the engine is pretty strong. It's not it's a pretty mean deck. If they max C you, it's really difficult to OTK them as well. So yeah, I think I think it's valid that I'm losing to Vanquish Soul. But like I said, this is a best of one ladder where you lose one game, you just pick yourself up and then play another one. As long as you're winning more than 50%, like this is, even though it's 50%, I want to see it higher. This is still a climbing win rate. Same with this, 58.8%. It's just above 50, but at least, it's agonizing. Climbing with 60% win rate is not great. You really feel the grind, and it does have a wearing down effect on me, as I climb. But yeah, we faced just some random guys. So yeah, interesting matchup. I thought, like, pointing out that Mathmech was still represented despite it was early in the climb. You'd expect them. They were still fine. Maybe they were trying to avoid the super heavy samurai apocalypse that, every time there's a new list or like a new deck being introduced, there's always somebody or like a group of, a bunch of vocal people who are dooming about like this is going to be the end of Master Duel. So I have to dodge all this. I don't want to deal with that, which is fair. This is valid, but if you don't want to deal with it, so be it. But I feel like when Super Heavy Samurai coming in, I felt like, I don't know if you saw my ban list reaction, I was like, here's some things about Super Heavy Samurai we haven't considered. And I tried to put a little more like positive spin, in like, I'm not like a huge fan of the deck, but at least I am trying to like understand that they have weaknesses, and then those are exploitable if you understand those. So yeah, I mean, bless their hearts if they're trying to avoid Super Heavy Samurai, but it's no big deal. You just if it's that's not like that's valid, I think. So I saved Master for when Super Heavy Samurai comes out. So I think, yeah, that wraps it up. This is just some, I don't want to drag season 24 to too long after all is said and done. It's it's pretty much wrapped up. It's in the books, but I still want to document this before going to season 25, which I find more interesting. After Super Heavy Samurai dropped, there was a significant shift in the meta. But yeah, for this one, I think, what are my thoughts? Branded, I'm surprised it did not get hit. I'm not really vying for its, like, I don't really want it to burn in the pits of hell or anything like that. But it is a difficult matchup, and I'm surprised. Like, it, something I was thinking about was banning branded retribution, which is what lets it. They have a number of ways to just dump a bunch of branded spells and traps in the graveyard, whether it's Quem, Albaz, the Shrouded Dragon, or they just have a bunch of ways to do that. Oh, Saronir as well. And because of that, they use branded retribution. So they will send branded fusion to the graveyard, then use branded retribution to add it back to the graveyard. So that would actually be an interaction where Bell would like come in clutch, which I did not play. Or DD Crow as well. So there's I'm not really playing the cards that do well versus branded. So that's one thing. The one thing that's kind of interesting. But yeah, I think, it was tough because branded is branded, not because branded plays Bestial. Because Bestial is just demand an extender. Branded engine can gas through a lot of things. Sometimes your hand traps are not effective against it. Like, I was playing Nibiru, it's okay, but like they can play on your turn, like Rinbrum reviving Albaz and then fusing your field. And like the insidious thing about that is like you can't use terahertz to change a Rinbrum on your turn to send Aggregator because of the way the chain resolves. since your turn player, your trigger effects such as aggregator will be chain link 1, and then your opponent's trigger effects chain after. So Albaz will always be the chain link after aggregator. So you can't even do that. You'd have to even if they go for Lubellion, it's messed up, dog. I like, you can't even chain to Albaz sending aggregator, because they can make Lubellion and fuse with your terahertz. Then, you know, chain link 1 aggregator, chain link 2 Lubellion, they fuse into Mirror Jade anyway. So they have like a layer of, it's a really messed up deck. They have a lot of interaction. Even Sanctifier Dragon is pretty annoying too, because it just revives. It's not even, I never faced Gimmick Puppet Lock, which is another thing that the community was kind of dooming over. Like, I'm not that like well versed in branded. There's a lot of great branded players out there, and I respect them a lot, because, you know, I think it takes more than just activating branded fusion to play this deck. A lot of these people beat me without even activating a single branded fusion. Like, I won't open Ash on their branded fusion, but sometimes they'll just, like, you know, out resource me, because everything comes back at end phase. And even like stuff like branded banishment, that trap is so strong into this deck. Yeah, it revives one of their cards, and then it super polys everything. You know, not everything, but yeah, they set up a lot. So what am I climb? Kashtira, I don't mind too much. There's that annoying anti-meta deck that you kind of have to, you can kind of ignore while building. And, you know, I was prepared for them with Nibiru and Imprint, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. They just combo on you, and you just kind of accept that. I think it's better. I wasn't doing a good, if I'm being honest, the list I was playing wasn't doing a good job of teching against Bistio branded, but, you know, with Bells or DD Crows or anything like that. Because, you know, they have some overlap versus the Mathmech matchup. Sometimes the Vanquish Soul matchup, they're okay. You know, great into Labyrinth. So I'm okay with like sacrificing my Kashtira matchup for all this. You know, I played Nibiru for pretty much the peanut gallery. That's why I play Nibiru, which is, you know, it for what it's worth, this is like about like nearly 50% of matchups. But yeah, anyway, how did I feel about this season and before the ban list? I think it was okay. The climb was okay. It wasn't the end of the world. Like I said, branded is a very tough matchup, and it's pretty difficult. And I don't know if I actually built around this branded. I kind of just brute forced my way, I feel, especially if I spent like, I mean, 80 games in Diamond. You know, there's no shame in spending that much time. Like, I'm sure people can attest to similar experiences. But yeah, I don't really feel too strongly about things. You know, people say ban Shifter, but yeah, I'm not a fan of Shifter. But when it's at 2, I don't really see it that often, and I don't really feel like I need to tech against it. So like things like Baguska are really good versus Shifter. But in ladder, I just kind of shrug it off. You know, I just lose to an auto win card. Okay, it literally used like 5 seconds of my life. You know, I can just move on to the next game. I can imagine like if I was playing against like Stun, and then, you know, they activate Morganite, and then I have to like spend like 40 turns trying to deck my opponents out, because Morganite gives them 2 draw phases each turn, and then I spend like 20 turns basically. That sound, and, you know, and I end up losing. That sounds like something I'd be molding over. Unironically, like, because that actually is, you know, my time. I you know, despite playing this game like pretty much nonstop, I think my time is pretty valuable. More valuable than my sanity, if anything. At least with the extra time, I can like take a nap or something. Anyway, what do I say? How do I close this out? I think that's all I really have to say. I don't really feel too strongly about these things. Besides branded, you know, it'd be interesting if they ban branded retribution. It makes it easier to stop them from adding what's called branded fusion back from hand after they've already spent it. They'll have to rely on stuff like what's it called? The Despia Tragedy to like banish itself from the graveyard, which is a good trade-off in my opinion, because you have to trade the ad of Despia Tragedy, and because you can only use one of those effects on that turn, so it'd be interesting. I think it'd be more interesting. Also, like Branded Retribution is kind of an annoying counter trap, but like it's not like the end of the world if that gets banned. They'll just play Branded Blazing King, you know, if they need a trap to set from deck, if they don't already have Branded Banishment. Yeah, seems. I think the meta is pretty cool. It's like pretty healthy. I don't know. I don't really like using the word healthy, but I have a pretty positive idea of the meta. It's not like I want anything gone too much. You know, it's like the perfect ecosystem for Mathmech to kind of thrive in. You know, I mean, there is Dragon Link lurking, but it's no longer going to be part of that ecosystem coming, and we're going to have to introduce Super Heavy Samurai. So anyway, I'm going on a bunch of tangents. I think that I'll just cut it off from here. I hope you had a good time, you know, listening to me ramble, and look forward to some replays and, you know, when I talk about season 25 and how I dealt with Super Heavy Samurai. Alrighty. Thank you.